Hello, Tekoa Church. This is Pastor Austin. I wanted to introduce my message today to you as well as apologize to you. We had some technical difficulties on both our main recording as well as our backup recording. And so the first few minutes of the message didn't make it into the video or the podcast recording. So let me jump into it and give you a recap before the recording starts for you. So we are looking today at the topic of how you can find your people. And God outlined a vision even for this with the church starting in Acts. And so looking at Acts 2:42, we can look at how the church started and how we have set up a lot of our strategy for Tekoa Church as well. So looking at Acts 2:42 through 47, it says, "And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved." This passage is the start of the church, and we see some amazing things happening. The first thing we see is that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. We see this in verse 42. And as I jump into this and get into the message this week, what I really wanted to do is actually just walk through this verse by verse. As we go through this, I think there's a lot in here for us and this vision of how the church started and how exciting it was to be a part of this church starting. I think there's a lot of that we can identify with as we start this church, as we start Tekoa Church, that as this church started, so can our church start. So just kind of going through this verse by verse today, starting in verse 42, like I said, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. And then actually verse 46 parallels this as they attended the temple together is how that verse starts. And what we really see here is that they attended large gatherings together where there was teaching, where there was worship, and these large gatherings were a part of their life of the church and their faith. And we see that today as well as we gather in large gatherings in the church. There is so much value in coming together to God's house. I talked about that a lot last week, that when we are planted, we set roots down in God's house, then we can flourish, we can grow. And so there's something that is really important about us gathering together physically in God's house, the church. And then the verse continues. It says, "And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayer." So it says, "and the fellowship and the breaking of bread and prayer." So they had the large gatherings as the first part of this. They also then would have smaller gatherings. This is where they would often share a whole meal together. They would spend time together in these smaller gatherings. What I want to share with you out of this is our strategy for Toccoa Groups. And Toccoa Groups are starting this week. These are smaller gatherings of 6 to a dozen people that will gather regularly for the next 3 months or so and grow together in community. They'll learn together. They will have fun together. They'll grow in their faith together. But groups, these smaller gatherings paired with the larger gatherings, are so important. If you only have one of these, you're missing out on part of God's plan for you and how you can connect to his place and his people. So I want to encourage you, jump on our website right now, check out the groups page, and jump into one of these Tekoa groups. It is one of the single greatest thing you can do with your week and for your faith to really jumpstart your faith. So jump into one of those groups starting this week. So we see the church having large gatherings, and they have smaller gatherings as well in groups. The result of this is what comes next. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the message.
So this is back to the apostles' teaching in the large gathering. Wonders and signs are done there. They're often done in our small gatherings as well, but many times God does these big things where people are gathered together so more people can witness and be a part of what he's doing. And we are already seeing that here, and I'm believing for more, that God is going to do wonders and signs in this place. Who is believing with me that God is going to do wonders and signs here? God is setting people free here from addiction. He's healing marriages. We're going to see him perform miraculous healings. We're going to see him continue offering hope to the hopeless, seeing people find freedom from depression. And can you join with me in your faith with that vision? Can you just say amen with me? Have a little faith with me. I feel like we're a brand new church. It's okay if you are a little bit loud. It's not like a one-way stage. It can go both ways. You can join in with me that God is going to do something incredible here. And not just that he's going to, but he already is. It's been incredible, the work that he's doing. We even have a story to share with you at the end today of somebody who is impacted by what's happening here at Tekoa. So wonders and signs were done, and then it continues. It says, all who believed were together and had all things in common. So the third thing that happened was unity. How amazing is it that unity happened? Because this just does not come naturally to us as people. I think we're all looking for it. We even live in the United States. There's times when there's big challenges with disasters or war or other things that we'll see people come together. And we all feel like we're looking for this. But it's so hard to actually find it, especially for any sustained period of time to find unity. It says for them that there was an extreme sense of this, that they had all things in common, even there was this extreme sense of unity. And it's not something that we practice to this extent anymore. Don't worry, I'm not going to call you to like sell your house and move into like a big like community living situation. That's not what this passage is saying we're supposed to do right now. But there's something important about the community that was taking place there, and something that we could miss if we just threw this whole thing out. That, okay, they were in this close proximity, they were doing life together, they were living together, that's great for them, but I live in Silicon Valley in 2021, and it's COVID, and I'm busy, and I don't have time for that, and I'm like, that was just a crazy thing that they were doing back then. One of the reasons that I refuse to throw this idea of unity out is because Jesus said something incredibly important about this. And I don't know if you are new to faith or you've been a Christian your whole life, this is for you. When you foster unity, you are living out your faith. When you invite people into your group and give them a warm welcome, that is fostering unity. When we greet people and give them a warm welcome into our church, that's fostering unity. And your chance, wherever you are, whatever your role in your place is, your chance to live out your faith, one of the key things you can do is to foster unity. And I want you all to key in on this because Jesus said something remarkable about this. I'm really excited. It's super important for us. And because unity is so hard, we could not do it, but that we would miss the plan that Jesus had. He said this in John chapter 17. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word. That is us. So right now, he is asking for his disciples, his apostles, who he's literally saying these words to, and then he says, those who will come to believe in me through their word. All the way down to our generation and beyond, Jesus is saying these words. So these words are to you. He says that they may believe in me, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they may also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given to me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me. Jesus says this twice for emphasis. He says it in the first two verses. He repeats basically the exact same thing in the next two verses. He says that they may be one, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. And this cannot be understated. This is the strategy of Jesus. You can't miss this. Jesus wants the church to be one. Unity is the goal. And the crazy thing is, you might have thought that the signs and miracles that were being done, that Jesus did and the apostles did, that's how the world would know who Jesus is or who God is. And that is one way that it happens. You could think, oh, it's through amazing preaching, or it's through amazing worship, it's through great kids programs, it's through great marketing, it's through inviting all of our friends, it's through a great location. And all of these things are important and a part. It makes space for the Holy Spirit to work. They all are a part of God's strategy, but the ultimate strategy that Jesus laid down for people to build his church was that his church would be united. And I get it too, because look at what 50 people did. We had 50 people on our team in August, 50 people that started this church together. As they supported the church through their finances, as they brought their talents and abilities together, as they started and served with their time together, through supporting one another, through even some challenging times in the month of August. I love what Jesus said would happen when his people came together in unity, and what happened here in Acts was the exact same thing. People came to know who Jesus was. We saw the same exact thing here. People came to believe in Jesus. People will be saved. What happened here on our grand opening alone, we had 14 people make a decision to follow Jesus with their life. And that is just the start of what God is doing at our church as we link churches with other arms here in the Bay Area and beyond. But if you can stop and think with me, what God did with 50 people, what is he going to do with 100 or 500 or 5,000 people? What he can do as they are united together is incredible. And it starts with unity, though. We can't miss that as we come together. And as we're on this subject of finding your people, that's why it's important to find your people. It's important to be a part of community. It's important to be a part of groups, because that is how we live out our faith. It's even how, getting ahead of myself, what we're going to talk about next week, it's partly how you live out your purpose. At Tekoa, we have something we call Build the House. And what this is our way of living out part of our call and our purpose and our faith. So part of it, yes, it's financially supporting and being a part of building God's house through that. The other part of it is through our time and our passions, our talents to support God and build his house. And we believe that when we do this, that God does something, and it's a privilege that we get to be a part of this. But as we build his house together, we get to see him at work. As we come together as a united people, we get to see God change lives in our church. We get to see him change a city block. We get to see him change our city and beyond as his people come together. The miracle here in Acts was the birth of this church. The miracle here was not just the birth of the church, but it was an extreme sense of unity, because unity is a challenge. And I want to invite you into that community, that unity, to be a part of gathering here as the big church, to be a part of fellowship, the life together here, our groups, and to be a part of building God's house together. As we continue here in verse 46, it says, "And day by day they attended the temple together and breaking bread in their homes." So they met in large and small gatherings. Just to recap here, they met in large gatherings, they met in small gatherings. Awe resulted, wonders and signs were done. Ultimately, an intense unity was created, and then it's repeated here. We looked at the beginning that they met in large gatherings and small gatherings. And it finishes, though, with the things that they did in response and what God did in response. It says they were eating together in their homes, but not just that they were eating, that they were doing it with glad and generous hearts. They were happy and generous. That's our response. We are to be glad and generous. We're to welcome people into our groups, into our home, into our church. When we sit down for a meal, when we go about our life, to be glad and generous. I want to even invite you, forget unity for a second. Maybe that's a stretch for you to think of or imagine. But if you can go back a slide, Amy, sorry. If you can forget that unity for a second. But if the church just started going about our lives with glad and generous hearts, this world would be transformed on that alone. We've all met grumpy Christians, we've all met greedy Christians, and I tell you this, if you started going about your life, maybe you already do this, but if we all started going about our lives glad and generous, you are going to start to see the church, and you're going to start to see God changing some lives. Our church, all of us together, are going to start changing our lives just by being glad and generous as this people was. It continues, it says, praising God and having favor with all the people. See, praise is a natural result. We even sang that in one of the songs earlier. Praise is the result of what God did. He did incredible things for us. He sent Jesus for us to provide a way for us. And our response to that is praise. What is praise? It's just saying thank you to God. It's saying, I'm grateful to you. You are amazing. I'm so glad you did what you did for me, and I'm humbled and in awe that you would do such a thing for someone such as I. And praise is indescribable. It's uncontainable. We will shout God's praise because we can't believe we are a part of a people and a place such as this, that we are living out our purpose, and it's more amazing than we could have ever imagined or realized. We can't help but praise Jesus as a result, the one that made it all possible. The result, it happens more. The result of our praise is that more praise happens. The result is that people are attracted to that praise. People come here and they see a group of people shouting praise to God. They might not understand it. Maybe some of you are here and you don't quite understand like this whole singing thing and these people that are kind of jumping around and going a little bit crazy. What are they doing? But even when people don't understand it, there's this sense of, why would people do that? I'm curious. I want to be a part of what God is doing in that place. He's doing something incredible. These people that have found their place and their people, I don't know about it, but I want what they have. When people get invited to your group, they might not understand everything you're talking about or going through, but they want to be a part of the praise. They want to be a part of the unity that you are experiencing that's inherent within it. And the result of all of this is that God added to their number day by day. The community grew. Why did it grow? Because God built the community. But why did it grow? Because they were united together. Because they were in the large groups and they were in the small groups. Because they were doing evangelism and discipleship. Those are fancy church words for saying we were sharing with others that didn't know who Jesus was about him. It's evangelism. And we were building one another up to become more like Jesus. That's discipleship. And as the church did these things, God added to their number. He built their church. The result of their incredible unity is that God was adding to their number. We don't aim to do church identical to what the church did here 2,000 years ago. Even what worked, some of the strategy that worked 3 years ago doesn't work right now in the middle of COVID. Some of that changes in the details, but this idea that was laid down here of the large gatherings, the small gatherings, and these pieces are exactly what we have built for Toccoa as well. It's right out of this. This is our model. And I want to invite you to be a part of that. And I get excited when God is doing something. Is the praise even comes when I see God at work. This is the goal. The goal isn't to just build a giant church. That's not why we're praising God, adding to their number day by day. We're praising him because we know that as my life was changed, as I know my life was changed, as I encountered God and he forever impacted and changed who I am, when I see other people experience God and change as well, I'm going to praise God because I'm so thankful that they got to experience the same thing I got to experience. That I'm so excited that I can't help but share with others because what God does in people's lives are incredible, and I'm so grateful for what he has done in my life. It's why I get so excited when I see people come to faith. It's why when we celebrate baptism as a church, it's my favorite day that we have as a church. So I want to even invite some of you, maybe you made that decision to follow Jesus. The very next step that Jesus says after you follow him is to get baptized. Baptism is just a symbolic proclamation that we are going to live our lives for Jesus. Baptism is a quick dunk under the water and a raised up to new life as you publicly saying, I believe in Jesus, I'm going to follow him. And it's a chance for our community to celebrate with you, and it's a chance for you to symbolically show that I am washed from all of my past and I'm starting a clean new life. I'm going to even invite all of you before I move on. If you have even questions about baptism, or you're say, I want to do that, we're going to do that this coming month. So right now, even in the middle of service, feel free to jump on our website, and on the Tekoa card, there's a box for baptism. If you check that box, I will reach out to you this week. Even if you just have some questions, I'd love to talk with you. So as I wrap up here today, I want to just highlight what was in this passage, and I want to encourage you. I kind of walked through our model of church for you, and you're like, I thought you were talking about how do I find my people, but don't miss it. That's how you find your people, by jumping in and being a part. And in a minute, I'm going to share the 4 things that we believe it for you to do, that if you do these 4 things, we believe you're going to find your people, you're going to find your place, and you're going to find your purpose. These 4 things, if you want to call Tekoa your home. But unity, intense unity that was Jesus' plan, his mission for the church, came from them gathering in large groups in God's house and in small groups together. And these 4 things that I want to encourage you to do are this. The first one is to attend Elevate. So Elevate is all about you getting elevated on your faith journey, wherever you're at, whether you've been a Christian for a really long time or you're still even exploring faith. We want to just elevate you on your faith journey. It's going to happen right back there in the family viewing room, right around 11:30, right after service. It's a one-time thing. You just go. You get to meet us a little bit more directly. You get to hear about our vision as a church and how you can choose to be a part of it if you're interested in it. Like I said, today only you get one of these hoodies, so today's a good day to stick around and go to Elevate. But that's the first thing. The second thing is to join our large gatherings whenever possible. We talked a lot about this last week, but there is something powerful and important about being planted in the house of the Lord. When we all come together, we get to experience God, we get to experience the Holy Spirit, and there's something that happens when God's people gather together in a room together. The third thing I want to invite you to is to jump into a group. And we have these groups that happen all throughout the week, and it's a chance for you to get connected to people and community. I want to highlight one of these. If you are new to faith or you're still even exploring faith, we have something called Alpha. Happens right here on Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock. We get to share a meal together, and you get to bring your questions about Jesus, about God, about life, about the world, and it's a safe place for you to explore. And I love hearing all the different questions that people bring, because God has created us all differently and we all have a different past and background. So come, bring your questions. If you are still exploring faith or you're brand new to faith, I want to personally invite you, come to Alpha and join me for that. Sign up on the website. Otherwise, join one of our other groups that we're hosting. You can also find those on the website. But don't miss this. As I said, as a pastor, if I could tell everybody to do one thing, this is what it would be. Jump into a group, join a group. It is the most important thing for you to do. And then the 4th thing as a church, to just kind of lay out our strategy a little bit, is, I talked about this earlier, is to build the house. God calls us to contribute to his kingdom, and this is what we do. And when we all come together, this is what God does. And I want to encourage you. I meet people often that will do one of these things, or maybe they'll do 2 of these things. But I want to even challenge you. If you do these 4 things, one is just to check it off and be done. So if you do these other 3 things just for the next 3 months, I guarantee you that God is going to change your life and you are going to be in a completely different place than you were at before. This is how we build community. This is how we find our people. This is how we find our place. This is how we find our purpose. And what we like to say here at Tekoa is not just find our purpose, but this is how we get around a group of people that will help us live out that purpose and support us through the times of life. So I want to encourage everybody, jump into what God is doing here at Tekoa. God is writing an incredible story. He's doing amazing things. Don't sit on the sidelines. Don't come in and just drink a great cup of coffee and go about your day. But give God a chance. Maybe you're a little afraid like the people were in our passage today. but give him a chance. Say, I'm not sure, God, but I want it. I don't know what's happening there, but I want it. It sounds great. I'm a little afraid. Give him the opportunity to work in your life. And God is the one who created the universe. He is not going to disappoint you. He's an amazing, incredible God. I want to invite you guys right now. I want to invite everybody to pray with me. I want to pray for you, actually. So would you guys bow your heads as I pray for you guys? God, I pray that this people would be united. Lord, as your strategy to build your church was for a united people. Lord, I pray for unity for our church. I pray for our people, that they would find connections to others, that they would have found their place, that they would have found their people, and that they would begin to discover their purpose and then to live it out. And I pray that you would do something incredible from it. That as we come together, God, as we trust you with our life, as we trust you with our time, as we even come together to build your house, God, that we would see you. God, we care about those that are in this room. We care about those that are outside of this room and outside of these walls and that are in this city. God, I pray that this little church that has started on the corner of St. James and 3rd Street, God, that we would be a light to this city, that we would share your love with them, that they would know that, God, that they are loved by you, God. And I want to invite anybody that is here right now, if you haven't yet put your faith, your trust in Jesus, maybe you're in that boat where you're a little afraid, but you think, I want that. I want to invite you to take that step of faith right now with me. All Jesus says is to confess and believe in him. That's all he says you have to do to come to faith in him. And so I'll invite you to just pray these words after me if you want to make that step today. If you want to, maybe you've been walking away from God for a season or a long season. I invite you to pray this along with me as well. Or maybe you've been walking with God. Pray these words with me. I invite everybody right now. Jesus, I confess that I'm not perfect and I need help. I believe you died and rose again for me. I choose to follow you. May you show me my people, my place, and my purpose. And God, I pray that you would help me live it out. Amen. I want to invite you guys, if you would, to just spend a little bit of time connecting with God. The worship team is going to lead us in one more song of response. And I want to invite you, even as this church did, that they praised God because of what he was doing in their midst. I want to invite you, when you're ready, to even stand up and join us in worship and praise of God, the incredible God that we serve.